All right, Assalamu alaikum once again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Senior Stars After School Club. MashaAllah, it's good to have you. So I'm here with you all, as well as Sister Letitia. And we have a guest, one of our interns. We actually have quite a number of interns. Ruqayya Kane is from UMBC. She is joining us today to observe. If you, yeah, there you go. If you can just introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll get going.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Ruqayya. I'm a junior attending the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I am majoring in biology and public health. And with my background in public health, I'm really interested in healthcare disparities and just giving back to the community. So that's why I decided to be part of Aafiyah project. And I look forward to working with you all.
Wa alaikum salam, Ruqayya. Thank you.
Ruqayya.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. So we're going to get started first with our, well, hang on. Let me see if I can get this on first. The slideshow. Need to take this off. All right, so just a quick reminder of our requirements is to show up on time. Thank you all for doing that. To be fully engaged. So we really want you to participate in the discussions. Be respectful of each other. And please complete the lessons and activities that we give you to take home, like the one that we're going to discuss today. Hopefully it's done. A quick reminder of our objectives. Really, the reason behind this is to give you all, help you all gain the skills and knowledge that you're going to need in terms of making it after your high school years, you know, something in terms of college career or career selections that you may make. We really want to arm you with the right skills and information that you need to know to make good decisions, right? So we're going to talk about our take-home task, which is comparing universities. The assignment looks something like this. Now, these are the 3 universities we visited, but it doesn't have to be those exact ones. We just really want you to begin the exercise of being able to look at various universities and weigh them based on the different aspects, see what it is that you might be interested in. And the way you get to that point is really for you to start looking at them across the board, you know, the type of university, the size, you know, to get a sense of, do you want a big university, a small one, a diversity situation there, tuition cost is a huge part of the decision-making process, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to stop sharing now and then hand it back to you all. Who is ready to present? Come on, guys.
I can go first. I don't have anything to present, but I can just talk.
Okay, that's fine. Talking is presenting as well. Can you turn on your camera, Rashida? Thank you. Oh, I don't think it came on. Are you able to turn on your camera, Rashida?
I don't. It's trying. I clicked the button and it's just loading.
Okay, no problem. So go ahead. What universities are you comparing?
I'm comparing NYU and Columbia.
Okay.
So Columbia is a Ivy League, and NYU is not, but NYU is more business related, and it doesn't have that many like medical programs, but like Columbia does, and they both are in like a city setting. So, but NYU doesn't have much of a campus, but Columbia does.
Okay. And I guess it makes sense that you're looking at their medical, more like the health sciences majors, because you're interested in what?
cardiovascular sciences.
Okay, perfect. All
So
right.
just really quickly, just because I lived in Jersey and I went to NYU, I completed their real estate course there, and I love where it's located. Did you go and visit Rashida?
I haven't, but I have seen it before when I went to New York.
Okay,
But I
good.
haven't visited it.
Awesome. So I went there to do like continuing education when I pursued my New York state license, real estate license. So I did the program there and then, took the state exam and I passed it. So I became certified to do real estate in New York, even though I did not pursue that career. I had decided to go back to college instead because it was a very competitive type of career with no pay to start. And so what I want to tell you is that NYU has a very strong Muslim student union. I know that for sure because I used to go there for their iftar events, meaning as an adult. Before I moved here 6 years ago, I would go there and they have a really good Imam Khalil, who's the imam and head of like the whole, he's the chaplain over there, but they have a pretty good, strong medical program too at NYU. Yeah. And so NYU is located like in a place that's very busy across the street from that beautiful park. It's just a lot going on. And then Columbia, even though NYU is not Ivy League, it's considered like a silent Ivy because it's prestigious and it's a private school and a lot of research come out of there. And then Columbia, as we know, is a private school. It's an Ivy League school, but it's also in Harlem, right? So there's a lot of mosque, a lot of West African people who live over in that area. I don't know about their Muslim student union, but obviously it's Columbia and it's supposed to be like one of the most prestigious schools. But those are two good choices, Rashida. Just because I lived in the area and I used to go over there a lot when I lived in New Jersey. So
excellent. Thanks for adding that. It's very important that you consider what your student life is going to look like on this campus if you decide to stay on campus. So that's something to remember. Thanks for sharing. Did you look at any information about possible scholarships, maybe merit scholarships that the two universities you compared that they give out to students? Because we're trying to get you guys to look at those scholarships and grants first, right?
Yeah, but I didn't.
Okay, so that's your next task. You should be looking at what types of merit scholarships they have, especially those that are connected directly to whatever major you decide on. Also look at diversity. Sister Letitia mentioned just in terms of the area, it's close to Harlem. So that's definitely a very diverse area filled with lots of culture. You can also do a little bit more digging in terms of what's available on campus as well. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Rashida. Nice, short and sweet. All righty. So let's have Omar. Are you ready to go next?
I only did 2.
Okay, go ahead. Let's. What 3 universities did you compare?
I only have 2. So I have Howard University and Stevenson University.
Okay, tell us a little bit about those.
So Howard is the HBCU. It's a private research university, and it has about 10,000 people. Like the full population is 10,000 people. The diversity is like there's 73% Black people and 6.5% Hispanic. So it's mostly Black people there. Tuition is about 28,000, but full cost is like I think it's 41K if you add all the extra expenses. It could be like housing, which is 9,300, and the first meal plan, which is $5,378, and I was looking at the major supply chain management because I think like when I eventually start a business, it'll be something very useful. There's also a combined program, Master of Business and Administration. That was intriguing to me because I'm interested in business. And for scholarships, I'm looking at merit-based because I think that's the best chance. The one I'm most likely getting, like a merit-based scholarship. And proximity to home, it's about 35 minutes away, which is 20 miles away from my house. And extracurricular activities, I was looking at the tennis team. I think I was on the tennis team. And for Stevenson University, it's a private institution. I would consider it small to medium size. It has about 4,100 people. There's a 26.5 Black population and a 54.6% white population. Tuition, about 38,000. I think that's not full cost. I think it's 38,000. Other costs like for housing is 9,000, about 9,000. Meal plan is about 5,200. And also accident insurance is $60. I was looking at the major finance or entrepreneurship, one of those. I'm really interested in those. One of the combined programs is bachelor's to master's. You need to maintain a 3.0 GPA throughout, and for your application, you have to have at least 60 credits, and for enrollment, you need to have had 75.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing. Wow. One thing I wanted to point out is, as you're going through it, and we've said this many times, right, Sister Letitia, as you're going along this journey, your colleges that you select will probably change, and that's okay. I was surprised to hear that Umar was looking at Howard University and Stevenson in terms of comparison. So that's interesting. And like you said, they're both private institutions, but there's at least a $10,000 cost difference in terms of tuition, right? Yeah. And very different too. One, it's an HBCU, which we'll talk about today. And one, it's what we call a predominantly white institution, which is Stevenson University is that. Mashallah, good job. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts from your peers, Sister Letitia?
No, I just think it's a good job. And just to go back to comparison, to go back to Rashidat, I remember when I was doing my school psychology program, and I think I told you guys this, when I was going to do the first part of the program, I always wanted to go to NYU. That was always my dream. I want to go to NYU. So just really quickly before our next student jumps on, I called the school one day in the Department of Educational Psychology, and a Black lady picked up the phone, and I said, I really want someone to review my transcripts. I want to enroll in your Master's in Ed Psych program. And she said, young lady, come here. Let me take a look at what you have. So I went down to the school, which was not far. It was a train ride over from where I lived. And she was like, okay, I'll have you speak to the head of the department to review your transcripts, to see what we're able to take, my undergraduate transcripts. And so she said to me and my friend, we went over there, she said, I want you to come outside with me so I could have a cigarette. And I said, okay, this lady wants us to have a cigarette? Like, with her, I don't smoke. But I thank God, alhamdulillah, for that lady. I wasn't even Muslim yet. She said, let me tell you something. You have your program in your state that you could attend, and then you have this program. You're going to spend $60,000 to get a master's in education at NYU, and you can't even become a school psychologist with that. You would have to then go to your state program to continue on to get the additional credentials to get a professional diploma or the educational specialist to become a school psychologist. She said, do not come here spending $60,000 unless they're going to let you attend this program for free. Go to your own, go to school over there where you're at. You could get everything there, and it's probably going to cost you half the cost. I say alhamdulillah for that lady. And I don't know whatever happened to that lady, but she was absolutely right. So sometimes the name or the prestige or not doing the research. And I was about to say, yeah, I think I'm going to probably take out some loans, because how else was I going to pay for it to get this? Because I want to have a degree from NYU. But that lady saved me a lot of debt, a lot of headache, and a lot of stress. So doing your research, And also you guys have something a lot better than I have. You have a hands up in terms of having the knowledge and the awareness through this program that helps you really think through things, and your parents can help you think through things as well to do that comparison. So alhamdulillah, that's just a little, so good job, Umar, good job, Rashida.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. That's very key.
Right?
I don't think we can overemphasize that aspect, of cost and really weighing it. Assalamu alaikum to those of you who are just joining us. We are presenting on the comparisons that you all did as your take-home task. So next, let's have Abdul Salam go ahead and present to us. Let us know what schools you compared.
So I compared Johns Hopkins and UVA, the University of Virginia.
Okay.
So for Johns Hopkins, the average tuition, just for like tuition, is around like 58,000 or around 58, 60K for just tuition. And then it has very good like medical programs. It's a good school for medical programs specifically. And it's in Baltimore, so it's not that far away from my house. So it's around an hour and a half from my house. And let's see. And the population, it's pretty diverse compared to UVA, because when I looked at UVA's population, it was mostly white for the population. And yeah, so for UVA, it's before I talk about UVA, Johns Hopkins is a private school and UVA is a public school. So for UVA, since I'm in state, the average cost is around 35K for tuition. And like I said before, the diversity is mostly white, so it's not as diverse as Johns Hopkins. And the education you get there, like the programs they have, is pretty like laid out, so it's pretty equal in terms of the education they provide for specific subjects. And as for scholarships, I would have more of an edge of going into UVA than Johns Hopkins, because they provide more scholarships for like students in my area. Because in Virginia, I'm part of this what's it called? It's like a academically gifted program, and UVA offers a lot of scholarships to that specific program. So I would have more of a chance of like paying off the money from UVA, since first of all, it's a lot cheaper, and I have more chances of scholarships.
I'm so glad you mentioned that and you're paying attention to that. So that's excellent. I mean, it's not to say that Johns Hopkins is not a valuable or a viable rather option. If you get the scholarships, absolutely. But when it comes down to it, you want to go to college, especially your bachelor's, debt free. That's the aim here. So I'm glad you're doing the research here. Another thing I would encourage you to do is some research around just the historical aspect of universities, along with diversity. As you mentioned, UVA, there were some things that I thought about, and I don't want to scare anyone, but you really have to understand what kind of culture you're getting yourself into when you go to these universities. It's very important, so you're not blindsided. Say that again.
Yeah, about that, I've actually done a lot of I've heard a lot of news stories about UVA specifically. So yeah.
So kudos to you for doing that. Just again, not to discourage you from going there. I want you to be well informed as you're making your decision. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. Great choices. All right. So who are we going to call on next? Naeem, are you ready? Let's go, Naeem. Unmute yourself and turn on your camera. We need to see you.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Salam alaikum, Naeem.
Salam.
All right. So what universities did you compare?
I did Duke, UCLA, and Towson. Duke is a private university, and UCLA and Towson are both public 4 universities. Yeah, the tuitions, Duke has, since it's like a private school, the tuition's like very expensive. Just that the tuition is like 60 grand. But for Towson, the in-state tuition is like only like 10 grand. And for UCLA tuition, in-state tuition is 13 grand, but out-of-state tuition is 29 grand. And all three of the schools are similar in terms of diversity because they're all like majority white schools, but Towson is actually like the most diverse out of all three of them. And they all offer like tons of scholarships to choose from. And that's basically it.
Okay, thanks for that. So thoughts, anyone have any thoughts to add to what Naeem shared with us? So Naeem, you're thinking about going straight across the country, right? From the East Coast to the West Coast. Why? What made you?
It's not even that.
Okay.
So I already researched the school in school, so I just like used it. I already had the information about it. So I had an assignment in school that I had to research a college. I just researched UCLA, so I just used it because I had all the information about it. So.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that's good. You already had a head start, so to speak. And and that again, nothing wrong with that. Just know, as you're looking at this different options, do I want to be in California versus in Maryland or the East Coast, which is fine because it's nicer weather there. You wouldn't have to contend with the winter. So those are things to keep in mind. Again, I'm so glad you all are seeing the huge differences in the cost. State universities, maybe $10,000, $15,000. Private institutions, $60,000, $70,000 sometimes, $50,000. So they can get costly. And typically they'll give you scholarships, but they might give you like $10,000, and who's going to cover the rest? Who's going to cover the $40,000 that's left over? Just keep those in mind. They're great institutions, but you have to be realistic in terms of and be willing to do the work in terms of looking for grants and scholarships, because it's possible. Okay. So Nafisa, go ahead and present. She said she only looked up one university, and that's fine. So let's talk. Turn on your camera so we can see you, please. It's okay. Let's go.
So basically, I did GW, George Washington University. It's a PWI. It's also a large population with it said over 11,000 undergraduates for the fall of 2020 and 2021. And then since it's a PWI, it's mostly white there. And then the second most is actually Asian. And then the third is Black or African American. And then there's 8.67% of Hispanic or Latinos, and less than 3.1% of two or more races. And the tuition is $60,000. It's an average of $58,640. And then for the extra fees, it's actually really expensive. It's $14,000 for the room and board, then $1,400 for the books, and then an extra $90 for other fees. So altogether, it's over altogether it's $70,000 to $80,000. And then the most popular majors there are the social sciences, the health professions, and other related programs like entrepreneurship and business. And then from my house to the school, it's about 45 to 47 minutes. So it's pretty far because it's in DC. And then for the extracurriculars, they have up to 500 plus active student organizations, clubs, and they have a lot of sports too.
Okay.
And then that's basically it.
So of those extracurricular activities, which ones interest you?
The swimming.
Okay. Oh yeah, you're a great swimmer, aren't
Mhm.
you? Cool.
Yeah, I used to know how to swim, but I need to learn how to swim again.
Oh, no problem. I'm
So,
sure you'll pick it up.
mhm.
So yes, $60,000 for is a price tag for GW.
Yep.
Interesting. Got to keep that in mind. And also where it's situated, it's very much at the heart of Washington, D.C. So it's a city type school and it's huge, as you all know. So thank you all for that. That was, how do you feel about this exercise? Because I really believe that the more you know, the better the choices you're able to make. So how was this exercise for you all?
I think it was really like valuable because it's important to search up colleges before you get in, before it's your senior year and you have to just apply. So you have to at least do some research before you get to that time. And I think it's like a good thing to do.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And Abdul Salam, you're in the 11th grade, right? So this is the key moment for you to really start tying it up. Like, what are my main school of focus and my safe school, so to speak, and then, the in-between schools. So definitely key for you to get going on that. Thanks for sharing. All right. So as we all know, it's fair. Oh, well, before I jump into that, Sister Letitia, anything else to add? Okay, great. So it's February, which is Black History Month. I wish we had a lot more activities planned around this. But so we're going to talk today to you about HBCU. We're going to discuss HBCUs, its usefulness, and a little bit of historic back information about them. Hang on. I think you can see my screen now, right? All right. So who knows? What are HBCUs? What does that stand for? Those acronyms, what do they stand for? Go ahead.
Historically Black college universities.
Okay, historically Black colleges and universities. Excellent. Thanks for that. I know it was a couple of you guys answering that. So some of the things, a key thing to note about HBCUs is the Higher Education Act of 1986. So actually the term HBCU was coined by this particular act of 1965, which basically defines an HBCU as a school of higher learning that was accredited and established before 1964, and whose principal mission was the education of African Americans. So any idea, any thoughts about why it was important to create an institution specifically for Black people, African Americans?
Was it because of the racial discrimination against Black people during that time?
So, absolutely.
I just want to go back just a tad bit, guys, because I think it's important for everyone to know this part, is that historically Black colleges and universities came about after the Civil War. So somewhere around 1837. And so the oldest one is Cheney University, which is in Pennsylvania, and it's still around today. So basically what happens, if we put this into a little context, because it's important to understand that, if you think about after the Civil War, that these universities started not popping up because a lot of them are still in existence. I think we've lost probably about 16 over the time of existence. So we had about 120 something. Now we're down to about 107 historically Black colleges and universities. So if you think about the fact that people who were enslaved for 400 years, right after the Civil War, there were universities coming about, and these universities were educating these people. That's amazing to me, because you got to think, they were not able to read, they were not able to write, but a lot of them were able to read, a lot of them were able to write. And so basically what happened, I mean, this is just to dig a little deeper in it. Dr. Demi, a lot of who you saw went to the historically Black colleges and universities were the children who were, you know, their father was the, you know, the kids couldn't be educated at white universities, even though a lot of them were half white and half Black. Their mothers were obviously the enslaved women, and their fathers were obviously the slave masters. So even though they could not attend, like, let's just say a Harvard or a Brown or one of those schools, these universities were really to educate the children of mostly biracial Black children, the children of the slave master, and also full-on Black people too. But I just find it amazing that after the Civil War, you have people who were enslaved for such a long period of time now pursuing higher education, which debunks the myth that they could not read, they couldn't write, they were ignorant, they didn't know anything.
Those are great points. Oh my goodness, thanks. You covered pretty much the next few slides. So we'll go through this very quickly. So historical context, like Sister Letitia said, there was a time in America where Black people were not, it was illegal for Black people to learn how to read and write. Of course, we know that they were learning how to read and write underground and in hiding and in secret. And there were also certain universities away from like the really strong slaveholding states that had institutions to educate exactly what she described. Typically, the children of the slave masters, but perhaps their mothers were Black or African American women. So they were of mixed race. So pre-Civil War, higher education for Black people were virtually non-existent. And when they say non-existent, meaning something formalized, there were just a few of them that were available. And this is the period of 1865 is when the Civil War ended. So once the war ended, the newly freed slaves were being denied admission into like predominantly white, well, they were all white institutions at that time, not even predominantly. They were not allowed to attend those universities. So there was a huge need for these historical Black colleges and universities to start coming up, right? The land grant of 1890, and I meant to do more research on this. So it's basically a land grant is where a situation where the government, the state government grants an institution the right to use the land, and they usually provide it to them for free. They're able to procure, maybe not free, but very cheaply, and build the institution, which will become a public institution where people can easily go and get an education. So the Land Grant Act really made a huge difference in allowing Black higher education that's focused on educating Black Americans, African Americans, to take place, because integration was still really very much an issue back then. Back then, in 1890, 16 entirely Black colleges were given the land grant. So about 16 of them. I actually don't have the list of those first 16 of them, but as Sister Letitia mentioned, there are actually over 100. Technically 101. I know you mentioned 107, Sister Letitia, but it looks like six of them may have lost accreditation.
Okay.
Been accredited. As of 2000, I think 2020, I think it was 107, but we've lost a few, unfortunately. So this is where they concentrate mostly, and you can see, can't you? Like they're mainly, a ton of them are in the South, also around the original colonies, slaveholding states and things like that. Not to say there aren't in other parts, but you can see where they're concentrated in, right?
But you are right. They're usually in the Commonwealth states. So the first one was Cheney, like I said, in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania was a Commonwealth state. And what you'll see in the South, you guys are sort of kind of like, I consider Maryland.
It's technically South. I know,
South.
folks.
Yeah. Like Maryland, Virginia, DC.
Virginia is definitely South. Virginia is definitely South. But Maryland confuses people, but we're still technically below that Mason-Dixon line. So we are technically the South.
The South. So you'll find a lot of historically Black colleges and universities in that area, and you'll find like a strong sense of, now things have changed a little bit. I'll talk about that a little later on, but you will find that strong representation of historically Black colleges and university. In the deeper South, you go like North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama. Oh, they love their HBCUs there. And it's just a very rich, understanding of what it means, and generations of people who have gone to historically Black colleges and universities, like your grandparents went, your parents went, you went, and you'll send your children to keep that going. Like a person who says, oh, my parents went to Harvard, I went to Harvard, I'm going to send my kids to Harvard, like to keep that going. But we'll talk about that in a few.
Yeah, no, absolutely, you're right about the Deep South. And fun fact, the state with the most HBCUs is Alabama.
Alabama.
Yes, that's cool. It's interesting to note that. So today there are more than 101, actually I researched it, 101 HBCUs across the country. So 100 plus in DC, which makes it 101. The first is Cheney University in Pennsylvania, like Sister Letitia mentioned. Can you believe it? It used to be called the Institute for Colored Youth. And briefly, it was called the African Institute when it was founded. At this point, it's part of the Pennsylvania State Systems of Higher Education. To compare to the situation in Maryland, for example, University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is an HBCU, is now part of the University of Maryland systems kind of thing. So they've been able to merge them, or not exactly merge, but tie them to the state university systems in different states. HBCUs represent about 3% of colleges and universities. They enroll 12% of all African-American students nationwide, and produce 23% of the African-American graduates. These data may actually be dated, so we may have more of those. These are typically data up until 2020. And they confer 40% of all STEM degrees, which is amazing. There's been a huge drive to promote engineering in HBCUs. So about 50% of African-American teachers and 40% are health professionals, those who go to HBCU. 70% of them are also dentists, physicians, and earned it. 70% of African-American dentists and physicians typically earn their degrees from HBCUs. And I'm not surprised by that, because the PWI is predominantly white institutions. It's still pretty hard for, very challenging, I should say, for Black students to gain entrance, to gain admissions into those, higher graduate institutes, because it's not just higher education. I'm talking about like the doctorate level. So 58% of HBCUs offer students opportunity to study abroad. So really keep that in mind, because I didn't know that. It was interesting to find out all the different types of opportunities you can get from HBCUs that I wasn't aware of. That just really stuck out to me. So examples of HBCUs. So we already know Howard University. I want to hear from you all. What other HBCUs comes to mind when you hear HBCU? What comes to mind? So Nafisa?
UMBC. George
UMBC
Mason.
is not an HBCU.
Oh.
It's very diverse, but it's not an HBCU.
Wait, actually, never mind about that. George Mason University, and that's...
I don't think so.
So I'll give you guys like North Carolina Agriculture and Technical College in North Carolina is an HBCU. And so just to let you guys know, like people who were enslaved, I don't like to say slaves for some reason, because people didn't come over here slaves. But the point that I wanted to make is think about like you're coming across to a new land, you still have your own language, you have education, right? They didn't bring like the weakest people from Africa. They brought the most intelligent people from Africa. So there was that learned of agriculture and all of the sciences that these people brought with them. And you have to think they were still able to teach their children these things for generations. It probably took, if you as an educator, probably 4 or 5 generations before you could break, maybe 4, the ability to say, no, you can no longer read. And a lot of the enslaved people, they were still able to read. They were still able to understand. So they were very smart with agriculture, which I'm honestly serious. I wish we had that today, because agriculture is very important. Knowing how to grow your own food, understanding the earth and how the earth is made out and the seasons and what goes with what. I don't know that stuff. But North Carolina A&T is an agriculture and technical college. I have 4 cousins who graduated. One was an engineer. He's an engineer. He's a furniture engineer. So you would say an engineer, you would think technology. No, he's the person who says, well, how does this desk stay stable? You know, and he's the person who does all the math and all of the calculations and what's needed to say that. So they do a lot of agriculture, technology, and a lot of things like that. I have an uncle who went to Fisk University, which is also a HBCU. So again, you find the HBCUs mostly in the South. Howard was once called the Black man's Harvard. Why? Because Howard is going through some stuff right now because of the, unfortunately, with all of the stuff that's going on with the structure of the building, there has been also an attack on historically Black colleges and universities. They do not get the funding that a lot of these big, huge places get, like Harvard. You know, the funding is not there. The endowment is not there. I think Harvard, the last time I looked, their endowment is in the billions, meaning endowment to give students scholarships, to make sure all of the facilities are up and running perfectly.
The research.
I mean, all of that stuff is super important. So what's happening now is that historically Black colleges and universities, unfortunately, they are going to have to start classifying themselves as minority serving institutions. And that is terrible to me, because everything means something. So if it's a historically Black college and university, there's a reason behind it. People had to literally, you know, go through all of that. And now it's sort of kind of thrown into a salad bowl. Let's just throw everything into a salad bowl and say it's this. But the problem is, some of the problems, what are some of the strengths? Some of the strengths are historically Black colleges and universities have produced some of the most talented people in our society. Thurgood Marshall, a Supreme Court justice, and he comes from a lineage of family members. Think about how old this man was, or, you know, he's since passed away. He comes from a lineage of family members who went to historically Black colleges and universities. Yeah. If you think about how old he was when he passed away, and then his father went to a historically Black college and university, the president of Brown University, an Ivy League university, she went to a historically Black college and university.
And vice president, Kamala Harris.
Right, Kamala Harris.
So yeah, I actually wanted to hear. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
What's her name? Nafisa just corrected herself. She said she meant Morgan State University, Maryland. Yep. So I want you all to think about universities close by to you that are historically Black colleges and universities. So Morgan State is definitely one. We've mentioned Howard University. Which other ones? And we mentioned University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. Which other ones are HBCUs that you can think about around you, or maybe even further away from you?
Tuskegee.
Is Bowie one?
Tuskegee, absolutely. Bowie State University is an HBCU. And Tuskegee University is super duper important, especially during, I believe, World War II, where it was really literally producing Tuskegee Airmen. The Airmen, it's named after that. So it's a huge institution that served a great purpose and still does serve a great purpose. All right. So let me go back to this. So those are some examples. Some of the ones I can, so number one, you know how they have college rankings and things like that. And don't get too caught up with those rankings, but this is how they're presented to us. Number one, HBCU is Spelman College, which is in Georgia. I'm not sure if it's Atlanta, but it's in Georgia, in the state of Georgia, and it's all female school. So that's something important to know. Note about it. Number 2 is Howard University. So Sister Letitia mentioned endowments. Some of the things that keep the schools at the top of their list is the endowment that they receive, meaning people who have graduated from the schools now donating money to the schools to help it continue to grow, to help it give out scholarships and help promote different research and other types of scholarships on the campus. So we have to, we really have to question ourselves once you finish the university, once you graduate, what are you giving back to your university to help it gain that, bigger, better types of endowment that makes a difference in the lives of other students coming along. So number 3 is Xavier. Number 4 is I think they have like 3 schools tied for number 4. Hampton University, which is in Virginia. Mm-hmm. I actually, interesting thing, I for the longest time I used to mix up Hillman College, which is a fictional HBCU tied to the A Different World, the show. I used to conflate that with Hampton University when I was growing up.
Hillman was supposed to be Howard and Spelman together.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, Hillman was Howard and Spelman. Yeah, because when I was younger, I used to be like, I want to go to Hillman when I grew up. And then when I found out it wasn't real and I did some research on it, it's Howard and Spelman together, which are
that makes sense. That makes sense. Mashallah, makes sense. So Morehouse College is an all-male institution, also in Georgia. So that's kind of like the brother school to Spelman University. Mm-hmm. Spelman College, rather. Tuskegee University, like we mentioned, in Alabama. I've been there. It's a beautiful campus. Wow. It was a long time ago, but I just remember it was a great campus. So the ones in Maryland, Morgan State University, as you mentioned, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, Norfolk State University in Virginia, UDC, so University of Washington, D.C. is actually an HBCU right here in Washington, D.C. Sister Letitia already mentioned some of those individuals, but these are some of the faces of graduates of HBCUs. It's not just the entertainers, because some of the lists I see are just about the entertainers, and there's nothing wrong with them. But I want you all to also know that there are some HBCUs have produced and continues to produce very strong professionals in their fields, people who have really contributed and continue to contribute a great deal to society. So we've got Kamala Harris, we've got Oprah Winfrey, we've got Toni Morrison, Martin Luther King Jr. Sorry, say that again.
I said Booker T. Washington, who was just brilliant.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely. So all these individuals here, this is just a snip of them, not all of them. And I would encourage you to do some more research of your own to get a sense of some of the great personalities that these universities have produced. So I do have a quick quiz for us to take. But before we do that, are there any questions? Any questions, thoughts, anything you want to add to this? No?
Just a lot of doctors and lawyers also graduate from HBCUs. I think we talked about that.
Yeah, and especially like the medical schools. So we have Meharry University. When I was thinking about med school, that was definitely something to consider. Meharry University, Morehouse College also has a medical school. And again, I'm not surprised that 70% of African-American dentists and physicians graduated from these institutions, because for the longest time, and still some of it is still lingering today, Black people were not able to gain admission into those programs, like the medical schools and dental school and things like that. So I'm going to pull up, let me share this now, the quiz really quickly. So let's go. It's 2 minutes. So you guys unmute yourself and let's go through this together. So you have to be Black to attend an HBCU. True or false?
False.
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 All right. So HBCUs are originally created to give African-American students who were denied entry into college based solely on skin color, a chance at obtaining a quality education. So fast forward about 100 years, you'll see that although African-American students are still the majority at HBCUs, there are a wide and diverse range of cultures, sexual orientation, class backgrounds, religions, and race representations on HBCU campuses today. So no, you don't have to be Black to attend an HBCU, just come as you are. Fun fact, and I'm going to stop sharing really quickly. And I learned this, I started learning about this. One of the universities I applied to when I was looking at colleges was Lincoln University, which is an HBCU. And I started reading stories about, oh yeah, it's the college that the first president of Nigeria went to, and it, lists all these great personalities that went there. And then so as I kept digging further, one of the things I found out is as many countries in sub-Saharan Africa, mainly in Western Africa, were gaining independence, and they left their countries because maybe their countries did not at that moment have universities as of yet. And they came to America to gain a college degree. They were still discriminated against. And where did most of these presidents go to? They went to HBCUs in the US. I believe presidents from Ghana also went to an HBCU. I can't remember which one, but I know for a fact the one, Nigerian president did go to Lincoln University. So that's an interesting thing to note as well. All right, let me just get back to this. Okay. Continue. So HBCUs don't provide the quality education that will prepare you for real life. True or false?
False.
False. Let's debunk that myth, because while college will teach you how to be productive and successful in life, it's unrealistic to think that any institution will single-handedly prepare you for all of life's challenges, no matter what kind of school it is. HBCUs have an extensive track record of producing some of the brightest and most successful minds in history. As we can see, Oprah, Thurgood Marshall, Mary Winston Jackson, and Vice President Kamala Harris, to name a few. So many HBCUs even offer a variety of professional development opportunities. Okay, and the list goes on. We get it. Being in an all-Black environment is limiting and artificial. True or false?
False.
False. Okay. So, sometimes actually, and I keep putting in that question about diversity in your search for university, not because I want you to only be around only Black people, but sometimes we need that. So we really do need to be around folks who understand you. And there's nothing wrong with being in an institution where it's PWI either, but just know that that's something for you to think about and have in mind as you're looking at your choices.
And you can still get a diversity from a historically Black college and university, because you have to think you have Black people who come from all different walks of life. Like I said, some of these Black students, their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents went to historically Black colleges and universities. Some are first-generation college students. So when we think about diversity, we only tend to think about skin color, but we also don't think about a person's lineage, a person's education, where a person grew up, what a person has been exposed to as well.
Yes, that's a good point. That is a great point. So diversity is not just about skin color. It's also, yeah, absolutely what you said. So lower admission standards equals lower value of your degree. True or false?
False.
False.
That is false. So just because, schools like Harvard only, admits 5% of their applicants doesn't mean it's a good school, but that's not a good thing to use as a comparison. Typically state universities or public universities would have a higher acceptance rate.
And it's also tied very quickly, guys. I only speak to this stuff because it's important to speak to it. So where it says performance on standardized testing does not always determine their full competence and capability to succeed in college. In order to get into a lot of these universities, especially the Ivy League universities or these high private universities like Duke, NYU, you have to take obviously those pre-entrance exams. And so what the research shows is that a lot of those pre-entrance exams are culturally biased. They are culturally biased exams, which would make it hard for most people to score at the first or second or even the fifth percentile. So a lot of the historically Black colleges and universities and state universities sort of waive some of that testing, knowing the historical biasness that are associated with a lot of the entrance exams. So we have to speak to that a little bit too.
Oh yes, that is so important and key. Oh my goodness, yes. And interestingly, a lot of universities are doing away with standardized testing. We'll see how that pans out as we go on. All right. All they eat at HBCUs is soul food. This is so cringy.
Oh,
Balls. We like to be healthy too.
Oh my goodness.
Though it's nice to think that all of our mothers are whipping up in the cafeteria kitchen, this is a false statement. Many HBCUs are dedicated to expose their students to not only food from African-American culture, but also diverse cultural cuisines in the cafeteria or via other on-campus dining options. All right, financial aid is so unorganized at HBCUs.
False.
I would say it's not just HBCU, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So financial aid at any higher education institution is a struggle. This is why we're trying to prepare you guys for this right now. We got to get it right, and we have to make sure we keep on it because it can be messy. Everyone is in a Greek organization or the marching band. Who knows what Greek organizations are?
I don't know.
Those are the fraternities and sororities. I don't know. Can you like briefly describe them or define them, Cecilia Teacher? I don't know.
Yeah, so they're back in the day, we had what you call the Talented Nine, which were a group of Black people who were part of the Greek fraternities. Fraternities are for male, sororities are for female, and they were actually distinguished amongst other Black people. They were very elitist, honestly, at one time. That was the original purpose of it. And you had to have the right look, the right this, the right that to get in. You had to come from the right family. That's just what it is. But now, obviously, over time, things have changed. But some of the benefits of those sororities and fraternities is that they solidify a strong brotherhood and sisterhood. They do a lot of community service, a lot of community activity. You find them, again, to be some of the most educated people. So if you say, hey, I'm an AKA, usually those girls are really smart. You know, I'm a Delta, really smart educators, doctors, lawyers, teachers. The same thing for the men, business owners, businessmen, and so forth and so on. So they've created a system of brotherhood and sisterhood where you can go anywhere in the world and you can, well, not in the world, but usually in the United States and in the Caribbean, and say, hey, I'm a Delta. Oh, okay, well, you could be invited to this. And to further that a little more, from that became sister organizations like the Links. Over in your area, DMV area, you find a lot of affluent Black Americans who are part of the Links, who are part of Jack and Jill, a part of all of those things. And it came from those sororities and fraternities. Usually mom is a AKA, dad is an Alpha, both went to a historically Black college or university, both are educators, doctors, lawyers, teachers, so forth and so on. Their kids are part of these exclusive groups. And you find that a lot, again, in the area that you guys live in. And so there's nothing wrong with being a part of a sorority or fraternity because they do a lot of great community service. But at the same time, nowadays, I think the focus has changed a little bit where the kids, they do tend to party a lot, but they still stick to some of the norms of what the whole purpose is of the organization.
Yeah,
which is community service and so forth and so on.
Thanks for sharing that. I would also add that it's not just in the U.S. I remember we went to United Arab Emirates. An African-American sister who was working there was telling me about, how some of the sororities still meet, and that's how they make connections. So it's worldwide.
It's worldwide. Yep.
So I guess this is the answer to this. Not everyone is in the Greek organization or in the marching band that we see all the time. So definitely Greek life is a huge part of campus life at HBCUs and also the band, but it's not everyone is in it. We have other organizations. So only Black professors teach at HBCUs.
False.
False. diverse. Once again, you probably have more African Americans teaching there, but you definitely have non African Americans as well. Okay, this is one's just silly professors covering all ethnicities, background, and creeds, even at HBCU. Good. Okay, so that's it.
That was fun.
Yeah, little pop.
Sister, did you create those questions?
Oh no, I didn't.
Oh, that was fun.
I looked for it. I had to look through a ton of quizzes to see which would make sense. I have another one, but we've run out of time. But just so yeah, we just wanted to give you guys some information about HBCUs, and definitely these are viable universities that you should consider in as you're looking at universities or colleges that you may want to attend. So that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions, thoughts? No, everything was clear.
Very nice.
MashaAllah. So I do have one thing I want to share with you all. Before, I'm glad I remember because I was about to forget this. So I met up with a nonprofit that's run by high school students, interestingly, in Montgomery County. It's called Innovate X. And this organization, their primary aim is really to teach, it's to push the county to pass a law where high school students are required to have financial literacy in high school. You guys went through that last year. There's in fact a nationwide push for this. So that's the basis of the organization. So what they've been doing is, lobbying the legislatures, the state, at the state level. And the young lady who is the head of it, Angelina, I spoke to her yesterday. She was like, please share this with the senior stars. There's a virtual advocacy evening event for middle and high school students. And I would highly encourage you all to attend. You guys sometimes you don't really understand how much power you have as young people, especially when it comes to helping change the laws. When the lawmakers see that you are all in tune and you're interested in making a change, they listen. So she wants those. So just go ahead and take a screenshot of this and save it for later. Please ask your parents for permission and see if they would allow it. But she is inviting you all to join them to try to lobby this is specific for Prince George's County, actually, I believe, taking a look at the bills. So please go ahead and take a screenshot of it. And another interesting fact, Angelina's team, inshallah, next month in March is going to come and speak with you all about more details about financial aid, something around financial literacy and college. Okay. And colleges. So I'm working with her on that to see what we come up with, really to continue on with this discussion of career and college preparedness with you all. Okay. This
group is so blessed to have all of these resources, Dr. Demi. May Allah reward you tremendously for this.
Ameen. Yeah, please. All you have to do is reach out there and take on the opportunities. They're there, but you got to make use of them. So inshallah, our next meeting will be in March. Unfortunately, in 2 weeks' time, I'm not able to meet. My kids have gymnastics meet, so I won't be available. Oh, okay. So inshallah, we have 2 more sessions, and probably one of the sessions we're going to try to focus on the parents. So we'll have a meeting with the parents, but our next session is going to be March 13th, inshallah. Okay. So that's it for today. We'll see you all soon, inshallah. Thank you so much for your attendance and your attention. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.